Hi, and welcome to Stream the Stage's second show. Our first show was Tis Pity She's a Whore, which you can also see on this channel. But today, we are going to be performing Blithe Spirit by Noel Coward, not Blithe Spirit's Noel Coward. And yes, so my name is Annabeth Westerman Blake. I'm currently doing my best posh voice because that's character. And I went to East 15 acting school with some of these lovely people as well. And I will be playing Ruth Condamine. We also have Alex White, who will be playing Charles Condamine.
Hello, I'm Alex, and yes, I am playing Charles Condamine, as Annabeth and my name on Zoom suggested. I trained at Central. I'm currently based in London, and I'm also currently wearing joggers with this suit, so feeling a tad bit surreal, if I'm honest.
We have the lovely Sam Bell as Elvira Condamine.
Hello, I'm Sam Bell. I'm playing Elvira Condamine, as Annabeth said. I trained at Rose Bruford and East 15, and I'm coming at you from isolation in South Shields.
Madame Arcati is played by our lovely Ruth Pownell.
Hello everyone, I'm Ruth Pownell and I trained at Italia Conti and East 15 Acting School with Annabeth and Sam. And I'm coming to you from the sunny village of Poppleton in Yorkshire.
We have Orla O'Sullivan playing Edith and Mrs. Bradman.
Hiya, I'm Orla and I train at GSA and I'm currently isolating in South London.
And last but not least, we have the wonderful Mohammed Bangora as Dr. Bradman.
Hi, I'm Mohammed Bangora. I'm going to be playing the part of Dr. George Bradman. I trained at Royal Holloway University, and I'm currently also based in Southwest London from the amazing views of my bedroom. Big appendix, I'm also wearing an astonishing shirt and blazer with shorts.
Fashion icons all round. So yeah, sit back. We hope you enjoy. This is a lovely little play, and we've cut it a little bit to make it a bit easier to watch in isolation. So yeah, we hope you enjoy. Did you manage to get the ice out of those little tin trays?
Yes, ma'am, I had a bit of a struggle, but it's all right.
And you filled the little trays up again with water?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good, Edith. You're making giant strides.
Yes, ma'am.
Madame Arcati, Mrs. Bradman and I will have our coffee in here after dinner, and Mr. Condamine and Dr. Bradman will have theirs in the dining room. Is that quite clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you're serving dinner, Edith, try to remember to do it calmly and methodically.
Yes, ma'am.
As you are not in the Navy, it is unnecessary to do everything at the double.
Very good, ma'am.
Now go and get the ice.
Yes, ma'am.
Not at a run, Edith.
Yes, ma'am.
No sign of the advancing hordes?
Not yet.
No ice?
It's coming. I've been trying to discourage Edith from being quite so fleet of foot. You mustn't mind if everything is a little slow motion tonight.
I shall welcome it.
Yes, ma'am.
I left my cigarette case on my dressing table, Edith. Would you get it for me?
Yes, sir.
Now, a dry martini, don't you think?
Yes, darling. I expect Madame Arcati will want something sweeter.
We'll have this one for ourselves, anyhow.
Oh, dear.
What's the matter?
I have a feeling that this evening is going to be awful.
It'll probably be funny, not awful.
You must promise not to catch my eye. If I giggle, and I'm very likely to, it will ruin everything.
You mustn't. You must be dead serious and, if possible, a little intense. We can't hurt the old girl's feelings, however funny she is.
But why the Bradmans, darling? He's as sceptical as we are. He'll probably say the most dreadful things.
I've warned him. There must be more than 3 people, and we couldn't have the vicar and his wife because A, they're dreary, and B, they probably wouldn't have approved at all. It had to be the Bradmans. Oh, thank you, Edith. Steady does it.
Yes, sir.
Here, try this.
Oh, lovely. It dry as a bone.
To the unseen.
I must say that that's a wonderful title.
If this evening's a success, I shall start on the first draft tomorrow.
Used Elvira to be a help to you when you were thinking something out, I mean?
Every now and then, when she concentrated, but she didn't concentrate very often.
Does it still hurt when you think of her?
No, not really. I sometimes wish it did. I feel rather guilty.
I wonder, if I died before you'd grown tired of me, if you'd forget me so soon.
Well, to begin with, I haven't forgotten Elvira. I remember her very distinctly indeed. I remember how fascinating she was and how maddening. I remember her gay charm when she'd achieved her own way over something, and her extreme acidity when she didn't. I remember her physical attractiveness, which was tremendous, and her spiritual integrity, which was nil.
Was she more physically attractive than I am?
That's a very tiresome question, dear, and fully deserves the wrong answer.
You really are very sweet.
Thank you.
And a little naive, too.
Why?
Because you imagine that I mind about Elvira being more physically attractive than I am.
I should have thought any woman would mind, if it were true. Or perhaps I'm old-fashioned in my view of female psychology.
Not exactly old-fashioned, darling, just a bit didactic.
How do you mean?
Well, it's didactic to attribute to one type the defects of another type. For example, because you know perfectly well that Elvira would mind terribly if you found another woman more attractive physically than she was, it doesn't necessarily follow that I should. Elvira was a more physical person than I am certain of that. It's all a question of degree.
I love you, my love.
I know you do. But not the wildest stretch of imagination could describe it as the first fine, careless rapture.
Would you like it to be?
Good God, no.
Wasn't that a shade too vehement?
We're neither of us adolescent, Charles. We've neither of us led exactly prim lives, have we? And we've both been married before. Careless rapture at this stage would be incongruous and embarrassing.
I was devoted to Elvira. We were married for 5 years. She died. I missed her very much. That was 7 years ago. I have now, with your help, my love, risen above the whole thing.
Admirable. But if tragedy should darken our lives, I still say, with prophetic foreboding, poor Ruth.
Oh, that's probably the Bradmans.
It might be Madame Arcati.
No, she'll come on her bicycle. She goes everywhere on her bicycle.
It really is very spirited of the old girl.
Shall I go, or shall we let Edith have her fling?
Wait a minute and see what happens.
Perhaps she didn't hear.
She's probably on one knee in a pre-sprinting position, waiting for cook to open the kitchen door.
Steady, Edith!
Yes, sir. Dr. and Mrs. Bradman.
Ah, we aren't too late, are we? I only got back from the hospital about half an hour ago.
Of course not. Madame Arcati isn't here yet.
That must have been her we passed coming down the hill. I said I thought it was.
Then she won't be long. I'm so glad you were able to come.
And we've been looking forward to it. I really feel quite excited.
I guarantee that Violet will be good. I've made her promise.
There wasn't any need. I'm absolutely thrilled. I've only ever seen Madame Arcati 2 or 3 times in the village. I mean, I've never seen her do anything at all peculiar. You know what I mean.
Dry martini?
Oh, by all means.
She certainly is a strange woman. Apparently, she's been a professional in London for years.
It is funny, isn't it? I mean, anybody doing it is a profession.
Very lucrative.
Do you believe in it, Mrs. Condamine? Do you really think there's anything genuine about it at all?
I'm afraid not. But I do think it's interesting how easily people allow themselves to be deceived.
But she must believe it herself, mustn't she? Or is this whole business a fake?
I suspect the worst. A real professional charlatan. That's what I'm hoping for anyhow. The character I am planning for my book must be a complete imposter. That's one of the most important factors of the whole story.
What exactly are you hoping to get from her?
Jargon, principally. A few of the tricks of the trade. I haven't been to a seance for years. I want to refresh my memory.
Then it's not entirely new to you.
Here you go. Oh no! When I was a little boy, an aunt of mine used to come and stay with us. She imagined that she was a medium and used to go off into the most elaborate trances after dinner. My mother was fascinated by it.
Was she convinced?
Good heavens, no. She just naturally disliked my aunt and loved making a fool of her.
And then I gather there were never any tangible results.
Oh, sometimes she didn't do so badly. On one occasion, when we were all sitting round in the pitch dark with my mother groping her way through Chaminade at the piano, my aunt suddenly gave a shrill scream and said that she saw a small black dog by my chair. Then someone switched on the lights and sure enough, there it was.
But how extraordinary.
It was obviously a stray that had come in from the street, but I must say I took off my hat to Auntie for producing it, or rather for utilising it. Even Mother was a bit shaken.
What happened to it?
Lived with us for years.
I sincerely hope Madame Arcati won't produce any livestock. We have so very little room in this house.
Do you think she tells fortunes? I love having my fortune told.
I expect so. Now, we really all must be serious, you know, and pretend we believe implicitly. Otherwise, she won't play.
Also, she might really mind. It would be cruel to upset her.
I shall be as good as gold.
Have you ever attended her, Doctor? Professionally, I mean.
Well, yes, she had influenza in January. She's only been here just over a year. I must say, she was singularly unpsychic then. I always understood she was an authoress.
Oh, yes. We originally met as colleagues at one of Mrs. Wilmot's Sunday evenings in Sandgate.
What sort of books does she write?
Two sorts. Rather whimsical children's stories about enchanted woods filled with highly conventional flora and fauna, and enthusiastic biographies of minor royalties. Very sentimental, reverent, and extremely funny. Oh.
Here she is.
She does know, doesn't she, about tonight? You're not going to just spring it on her, are you?
Of course, it was all arranged last week. I told her how profoundly interested I was in anything to do with the occult, and she blossomed like a rose.
I really feel quite nervous.
My dear Madame Arcati.
I'm afraid I'm rather late, but I had a sudden presentiment I was going to have a puncture, so I went back to fetch my pump. And then, of course, I didn't have a puncture at all. Dr. Bradman, the man with the gentle hands.
I'm delighted to see you looking so well. This is my wife.
We are old friends. We met coming out of the shops.
Would you like a cocktail?
If it's a dry martini, yes. If it's a concoction, no. Experience has taught me to be very wary of concoctions.
It is a dry martini.
How delicious. It was wonderful cycling through the woods this evening. I was deafened with bird song.
It has been lovely all day.
But evening's the time, mark my words.
Here you go.
Oh. Cheers, thank you.
Cheers.
I must say, I find bicycling very exhausting.
Steady rhythm, that's what counts. Once you get the knack of it, you need never look back. On you get, and away you go.
But the hills, Madame Arcati, pushing up those awful hills.
Just knack again. Down with your head, up with your heart, and you're over the top like a flash, and skimming down the other side like a dragonfly. This is the best dry martini I've had for years.
Will you have another?
Certainly.
Let me take that.
Oh, you're a very clever man. Anybody can write books, but it takes an artist to make a dry martini that's dry enough.
Are you writing anything nowadays, Madame Arcati?
It's a children's book. I have to finish it by the end of October to catch the Christmas sales. It's mostly about very small animals. The hero is a moss beetle. I had to give up my memoir of Princess Palatine because she died in April. I talked to her about it only the other day, and she implored me to go on with it, but I really hadn't the heart.
You talked to her about it the other day?
Yes, through my control, of course. She sounded very irritable.
It's funny to think of people in the spirit world being irritable, isn't it? I mean, one can hardly imagine it, can one?
We have no reliable guarantee that the afterlife will be any less exasperating than this one, have we?
Oh, Mr. Condamine, how can you?
Come along then. Mrs. Bradman, Madame Arcati, you're on Charles's right.
Lovely.
On her mother's side, she went right back to the Borgias, which I think accounted for a lot one way or another. Even as a child, she was given to the most violent, destructive tempers. Very inbred, you know.
Yes, she must have been.
My control was quite scared the other day when we were talking. I could hear it in her voice. After all, she is only a child.
Do you always have a child as a control?
Yes, they're generally the best. Daphne has worked with me for years.
And she still goes on being a child. I mean, she doesn't show any signs of growing any older.
Time values on the other side are utterly different from ours.
Do you feel funny when you go off into a trance?
In what way funny?
Mrs. Bradman doesn't mean funny in its comedic implication. I think she meant odd or strange.
The word was an unfortunate choice.
I'm sure. I'm very sorry.
Doesn't matter in the least. Please don't apologize.
Can you foretell the future?
Certainly not. I disapprove of fortune tellers most strongly.
Oh, really? Why?
Too much guesswork and fake mixed up with it, even when the gift is genuine, and only very occasionally is. You can't count on it.
Well, I wish the men would hurry up. I'm terribly excited.
Please don't be. It makes everything much more difficult.
Well, Madame Arcati, the time is drawing near.
Who knows? It may be receding.
How very true.
Well, I do hope you feel in the mood, Madame Arcati.
It's not a question of mood, it's a question of concentration.
You must forgive us for being impatient. We can perfectly easily wait, though, if you're not quite ready to start.
Nonsense, my dear, I'm absolutely ready. First, a few deep, deep breaths of fresh air. You may talk if you wish. It will not disturb me in the least.
Oh dear.
Little Tommy Tucker sings for his supper. What shall he have but brown bread and butter? I despise that because it doesn't rhyme at all, but Daphne loves it.
Who's Daphne?
Daphne is Madame Arcati's control. She's a little girl.
Oh, yes, I see. Of course.
How old is she?
Oh, she's rising 7 when she died.
And when was that?
February the 6th, 1887.
Poor little thing.
She must be a bit long in the tooth by now, I should think.
You should think, Dr. Bradman, but I fear you don't. At least not profoundly enough.
Do be quiet, George. You'll put Madame Arcati off.
Don't worry, my dear, I'm quite used to skeptics. They generally turn out to be the most vulnerable and receptive in the long run.
You'd better take that warning to heart, Dr. Bradman.
Please forgive me, Madame Arcati. I can assure you I am most deeply interested.
Oh, it is of no consequence. Will you all sit round the table, please, and place your hands downward on it?
Come, Mrs. Bradman.
What about the lights?
All in good time, Mr. Condamine. Sit down, please. Now, there are one or two things I should like to explain, so will you all listen attentively?
Of course.
Presently, I'm going to switch out the lights. I may then either walk about the room for a little or lie down flat. In due course, I shall draw up this dear little stool and join you at the table. I shall place myself between you and your wife, Mr. Condamine, and rest my hands lightly upon yours. I must ask you not to address me or move or do anything in the least distracting. Is that quite clear?
Perfectly.
Of course, I cannot guarantee that anything will happen at all. Daphne may be unavailable. She had a head cold very recently and was rather under the weather, poor child. On the other hand, a great many things might occur. One of you might have an emanation, for instance, or we might contact a poltergeist, which would be extremely destructive and noisy.
In what way destructive?
They throw things, you know.
No, I didn't know.
But we must cross that bridge when we come to it, mustn't we?
Certainly, by all means.
Fortunately, an elemental at this time of the year is most unlikely.
What do elementals do?
Oh, my dear, one can never tell. They're dreadfully unpredictable. Usually they take the form of a very cold wind.
I don't think I shall like that.
Now then, are you ready to empty your minds?
You mean we have to try to think of nothing?
Absolutely nothing, Dr. Bradman. Concentrate on a space of nondescript colour. That is really the best way.
I shall do my damnedest.
Good work. I will now start. Lights!
Oh, dear.
Quiet, please. Is there anyone there? Is there anyone there? One rap for yes, two raps for no. Now then, is there anyone there?
Oh,
Shh! Is that you, Daphne? Is your cold better, dear? Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you doing anything for it? I'm afraid she's rather fretful. Is there anyone there who wishes to speak to anyone here? Ah, now we're getting somewhere. No, Daphne, don't do that, dear. You're hurting me. Daphne, dear, please. Oh, be good, there's a dear child. You say there is someone there who wishes to speak to someone here? Is it me? Is it Dr. Bradman? Is it Mrs. Bradman? Is it Mrs. Condamine? Stop it! Stop it! Behave yourself. Is it Mr. Condamine? There's someone who wishes to speak to you, Mr. Condamine.
Tell them to leave a message. Oh!
I really must ask you not to be flippant, Mr. Condamine.
I'm so sorry, it slipped out.
Do you know anybody who's passed over recently?
It might be old Mrs. Plummet. You know, she died on Whit Monday.
I can't imagine why old Mrs. Plummet should wish to talk to me. We had very little in common.
It's worth trying anyhow.
Are you old Mrs. Plummet?
She was very deaf. Perhaps you'd better shout?
Are you old Mrs. Plummet? There's nobody there at all.
Oh, how disappointing. Just as we were getting on so nicely.
Violet, be quiet.
Well, I'm afraid there's nothing for it but for me to go into a trance. I had hoped to avoid it because it's so exhausting. However, what must be, must be.
Have it your own way.
Oh.
And that would be Daphne. She ought to have her adenoids taken out.
George, please.
Good God.
Oh,
Oh dear.
trying to get away. I can't hold it.
Press down hard.
Oh,
Ought we to pick it up or leave it where it is?
How the hell do I know?
There's no need to snap at me.
Leave it where it is.
who said that?
Who said what?
Somebody said, leave it where it is.
Oh, nonsense, dear.
I heard it distinctly.
I never heard a sound.
It was you, Ruth. You're playing tricks.
I'm not doing anything of the sort. I haven't uttered.
Good evening, Charles.
You must have heard that. One of you must have heard that.
Heard what?
You mean to sit there solemnly and tell me that none of you heard anything at all?
I certainly didn't.
Neither did I. I wish I had. I should love to hear something.
It's difficult to think of what to say after 7 years, but I suppose good evening is as good as anything else.
Who are you?
Elvira, of course. Don't be so silly.
I can't bear this for another minute. Get up, everybody. The entertainment's over.
What on earth's the matter with you?
Nothing's the matter with me. I'm just sick of the whole business, that's all.
Did you hear anything that we didn't hear, really?
Of course not. I was only pretending.
Oh, dear, look at Madame Arcati.
Oh, what are we to do with her?
Bring her round. Bring her round as soon as possible.
I think we'd better leave her alone.
But she might stay like that for hours.
No, the old gal's out all right.
Bring her round. It's dangerous to leave her like that.
Really, Charles, you are behaving most peculiarly.
Wake up, Madame Arcati. Wake up. It's time to go home.
Hey, go easy, old man.
Wake up, Madame Arcati. Little Tommy Tucker, Madame Arcati. Wake up.
Oh, she's coming round.
Well, that's that.
Are you all right?
Certainly I am. Never felt better in my life. Well, what happened? Was it satisfactory?
Nothing much happened, Madame Arcati, after you went off.
Something happened, all right. I can feel it. No poltergeist at any rate. That's a good thing. Any apparitions?
Not a thing.
No ectoplasm?
I'm not quite sure what that is, but I don't think so.
Very curious. I feel as though something tremendous has taken place.
Charles pretended he heard a voice in order to frighten us.
It was only a joke.
A very poor one, if I may say so. Nevertheless, I'm prepared to swear that there is someone else psychic in this room apart from myself.
I don't see how there can be, really, Madame Arcati.
I do hope I haven't gone and released something. However, we are bound to find out within a day or two. If any manifestations should occur or you hear any unexpected noises, you might let me know at once.
Of course we will. We'll telephone immediately.
I really think I must be on my way now.
Wouldn't you like anything before you go?
No, thank you. I have some Ovaltine already in a saucepan at home. It only needs hotting up.
Wouldn't you like to leave your bicycle here and let us drive you?
I honestly think you should, Madame Arcati. After that trance and everything, you can't be feeling quite yourself.
Nonsense, my dear. I'm fit as a fiddle. Always feel capital after a trance. Rejuvenates me. Good night, Mrs. Condamine.
Night.
I'm so sorry so little occurred. It's that cold of Daphne's, I expect. You know what children are when they have anything wrong with them. We must try again some other evening.
That would be lovely.
Good night, Mrs. Bradman.
It was thrilling, it really was. I felt the table absolutely shaking under my hands.
Good night, Doctor.
Congratulations, Madame Arcati.
I am fully aware of the irony in your voice, Dr. Bradman. As a matter of fact, you'd be an admirable subject for telepathic hypnosis. A great chum of mine is an expert. I should like her to look you over.
I'm sure I would be charmed.
Good night, everyone. Next time we must really put our backs into it.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh, careful, Mrs. Condamine. She might hear you.
I can't help it. I really can't. I've been holding this in for ages.
Oh, she certainly put you in your place, George, and serve you right.
She's raving mad. Of course. Mad as a hatter.
But do you really think she'd believe?
Oh, of course not. The whole thing's a put-up job. I must say, though, she shoots a more original lines than they generally do.
I should think she's probably half convinced herself by now.
It's a possibility, you know, the trance was genuine enough, but that, of course, can be easily accounted for.
Hysteria.
Yes, a form of hysteria.
I do hope Mr. Condamine got all the atmosphere he wanted for his book.
He might have got a great deal more if he hadn't spoiled everything by showing off. You'd be very cross with him.
Well, the old girl's gone pedalling off down the drive at a hell of a speed. We had a bit of trouble lighting her lamp.
Oh, poor thing.
I've got a theory about her, you know. I believe that she is completely sincere.
Charles, how could she be?
Wouldn't it be possible, Doctor? Some form of self-hypnotism?
It might be. As I was explaining to your wife just now, yet there are certain types of hysterical subjects.
George, dear, it's getting terribly late and we really must go home. You have to be up so early in the morning.
You see, the moment I begin to talk about anything that really interests me, my wife interrupts me.
I'm right, darling. It's past 11.
I'll do a little reading up on the whole business just for the fun of it.
You must have a drink before you go.
No, really, thank you. Violet's quite right, I'm afraid. I have to get up abnormally early tomorrow. I have a patient being operated on in Canterbury.
It has been a thrilling evening. I shall never forget it. It was very sweet of you to include us.
Good night, Mr. Condamine. Thank you so very much.
We'll let you know if we find any poltergeists whirling about.
I shall never forgive you if you didn't.
Come along, darling.
Well, darling,
Well,
would you say the evening has been profitable?
yes, I suppose so.
I must say, it was extremely funny at moments.
Yes, it certainly was.
What's the matter?
The matter?
Yes, you seem old somehow. Do you feel quite well?
Perfectly. I think I'll just refill my drink. Do you want one? Don't think I'll make any notes tonight. I'll start fresh in the morning. Oh! My God!
Charles?
That was very clumsy, Charles, dear.
Elvira! Then it's true. It was you.
Of course it was.
Charles, darling. Charles, what are you talking about?
Are you a ghost?
I suppose I must be. It's all very confusing.
Charles, what do you keep looking over that for? Look at me. What's happened?
Don't you see?
See what?
Elvira!
Elvira.
Yes! Elvira, dear. This is Ruth. Ruth, dear. This is Elvira.
If this is a joke, dear, it's gone quite far enough. Sit down, for God's sake, and don't be idiotic.
Oh, what am I to do? What the hell am I to do?
I think you might at least be a little more pleased to see me. After all, you conjured me up.
I didn't do any such thing.
Nonsense, of course you did. That awful child with the cold came and told me you wanted to see me urgently.
It was all a mistake. A horrible mistake.
Stop talking like that, Charles. As I told you before, the joke's gone far enough.
I've gone mad. That's what it is. I've just gone raving mad.
Here. Drink this.
This is appalling.
Relax.
How can I relax? I shall never be able to relax again as long as I live.
Drink some brandy.
There! Now are you satisfied?
Now sit down. Would you like some more brandy?
Very unwise. You always had a weak head.
I could drink you under the table.
There's no need to be aggressive, Charles.
I'm sorry.
Here, drink this and then we'll go to bed.
Get rid of her, Charles. Then we can talk.
That's a thoroughly immoral suggestion. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
What is there immoral in that?
I wasn't talking to you.
Oh, who were you talking to then?
Elvira is here, Ruth. She's standing a few yards away from you.
Yes, dear. I can see her distinctly under the piano with a zebra.
But Ruth!
I'm not going to stay here arguing any longer.
Hooray!
Shut up!
Dare you speak to me like that? I will not listen to any more of this nonsense. I'm going up to bed now. I'll leave you to turn out the lights. Shan't be asleep. I'm too upset. So you can come in and say goodnight to me if you feel like it.
Oh, that's big of her, I must say.
Be quiet. You're behaving like a gutter snipe.
That is all I have to say. Good night, Charles.
Ruth!
That was one of the most enjoyable half hours I've ever spent.
Where have you come from?
You know, it's very peculiar, but I've sort of forgotten.
Are you to be here indefinitely?
I don't know that either.
Oh my God!
Why? Would you hate it so much if I was?
Well, you must admit it would be embarrassing.
I don't see why, really. It's all a question of adjusting yourself. Anyhow, I think it's horrid of you to be so unwelcoming and disagreeable.
Now, look here, Elvira.
I do. I think you're mean.
Try to see my point, dear. I've been married to Ruth for 5 years and you've been dead for 7.
Not dead, Charles. Passed over. It's considered vulgar to say dead where I come from.
Passed over then.
You mustn't think me unreasonable, but I really am a little hurt. You called me back, and at great inconvenience I came, and you've been thoroughly churlish ever since I arrived.
Believe me, Elvira, I most emphatically did not send for you. There's been some mistake.
Well, somebody did, and that child said it was you. I remember I was playing backgammon with a very sweet gentleman. I think his name was Genghis Khan. And I'd thrown double sixes, and then the child paged me, and the next thing I knew, I was in this room. Perhaps it was your subconscious.
You must find out whether you are going to stay or not, and we can make arrangements accordingly.
I don't see how I can.
Well, try to think. Isn't there anyone that you know that you can get in touch with over there on the other side, or whatever it's called, who could advise you?
I can't think. It seems so far away, as though I dreamed it.
You must know somebody else besides Genghis Khan.
Oh, Charles.
Oh, Elvira.
What is it, darling?
I really do feel strange seeing you again.
That's better.
What's better?
Your voice was kinder.
Was I ever unkind to you when you were alive?
Often.
Oh, how can you? I'm sure that's an exaggeration.
Not at all. You were an absolute pig that time we went to Cornwall and stayed in that awful hotel. You hit me with a billiard cue.
Only very, very gently.
I loved you very much.
I loved you too. I suppose I shall wake up eventually, but I feel strangely peaceful now.
Well, that's better than nothing.
I suppose if I really am out of my mind, they'll put me in an asylum.
Oh, don't worry about that. Just relax.
Poor Ruth.
To hell with Ruth.
Good morning, darling.
Good morning, Charles.
It certainly is.
What certainly is what?
A good morning. A tremendously good morning. There isn't a cloud in the sky and everything looks newly washed.
Edith's keeping your breakfast hot. You'd better ring.
You're very glacial this morning.
Are you surprised?
Frankly, yes, I expected more of you.
Well, really.
I've always looked upon you as a woman of perception and understanding.
Perhaps this is one of my off days.
Good morning, Edith.
Good morning, sir.
Feeling fit?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
How's Cook?
I don't know, sir. I haven't asked her.
You should. You should begin every day by asking everyone how they are. It oils the wheels.
Yes, sir.
Greet her from me, will you?
Yes, sir.
That will be all for the moment, Edith.
Yes, ma'am.
I wish you wouldn't be facetious with the servants. It confuses them and undermines their morale.
I consider that point of view retrogressive, if not downright feudal.
I don't care what you consider it. I have to run the house and you don't.
Are you implying that I couldn't?
No, you're at liberty to try.
I take back what I said about it being a good morning. It's a horrible morning.
You behaved abominably last night. You wounded and insulted me.
I was the victim of an aberration.
Oh, nonsense, you were drunk.
I swear to you that during that seance, I was convinced that I heard Elvira's voice.
And you seriously expect me to believe that you weren't drunk?
I know I wasn't drunk. If I'd been all that drunk, I should have a dreadful hangover now, shouldn't I?
I'm not at all sure that you haven't.
I haven't got a trace of a headache. My tongue's not coated. Look at it.
I've not the least desire to look at your tongue. Kindly put it in again.
I know what it is. You're frightened.
Frightened? Rubbish. What is there to be frightened of?
Elvira, you wouldn't have minded all that much, even if I had been drunk. It's only because it was all mixed up with Elvira.
I seem to remember last night before dinner telling you that your views of female psychology were rather didactic. I was right. I should have added that they were puerile.
We were talking too much about Elvira. It's dangerous to have somebody very strongly in your mind when you start dabbling with the occult.
She certainly wasn't strongly in my mind.
She was in mine.
Oh, she was she?
You tried to make me say that she was more physically attractive than you so that you could hold it over me.
Your view of women is academic, to say the least of it. Just because you've always been dominated by them, it doesn't necessarily follow that you know anything about them.
I've never been dominated by anyone.
Oh, you were hag-ridden by your mother until you were 23. Then you got into the clutches of that awful Mrs. whatever her name was.
Mrs. Winthrop Llewellyn.
I'm not interested. Then there was Elvira. She ruled you with a rod of iron.
Elvira never ruled anyone. She was much too elusive. That was one of her greatest charms.
Ugh. Then there was Maud Chatteris.
My affair with Maud Charterie lasted exactly 7.5 weeks, and she cried all the time. If you wish to make an inventory of my sex life, dear, I think it's only fair to tell you that you've missed out several episodes. I'll consult my diary and give you the complete list after lunch. You know, in fact, the only woman in my whole life who's ever attempted to dominate me is you. You've been at it for years.
That is completely untrue.
Oh, no, it isn't. You boss me and bully me and order me about. You don't even allow me to have a hallucination if I want to.
You seem to forget that you gratuitously insulted me.
I did not.
You called me a gutter snipe. You told me to shut up. And when I quietly suggested that we should go up to bed, you said with the most disgusting leer that it was an immoral suggestion.
I was talking to Elvira.
If you were, I can only say that it conjures up a fragrant picture of your first marriage.
Can I clear, please, ma'am?
Yes, Edith.
Cook wants to know about lunch.
Will you be in to lunch, Charles?
Please don't worry about me. I shall be perfectly happy with a bottle of gin in my bedroom.
Don't be silly, dear. Tell Cook we shall both be in.
Yes, ma'am.
Please, Ruth, be reasonable.
I'm perfectly reasonable.
I wasn't pretending. I really did believe that I saw Elvira, and when I heard her voice, I was appalled.
You put up with it for 5 years.
When I saw her, I had the shock of my life. That's why I dropped the glass.
But you couldn't have seen her.
I know I couldn't have, but I did.
Well, then there's obviously something wrong with you.
Exactly. There is something wrong with me. Something fundamentally wrong with me. That's why I've been imploring your sympathy, and all I got was a sterile temperance lecture.
Perhaps you ought to see a nerve specialist.
I'm not in the least neurotic, and I never have been.
A psychoanalyst, then.
I refuse to endure months of expensive humiliation, only to be told at the end of it that at the age of 4 I was in love with my rocking horse.
How do you feel now?
Physically, do you mean?
Altogether.
Apart from being worried, I feel quite normal.
You're not hearing or seeing anything in the least unusual?
Not a thing.
Good.
You've absolutely ruined that border by the sundial. It looks like a mixed salad.
Oh my God!
Oh, what's the matter now?
She's here again!
Pull yourself together and don't be absurd.
It's all those nasturtiums. They're so vulgar.
I like nasturtiums.
You like what?
They're all right in moderation, but in a mass like that, they look beastly.
Help me, Ruth. You've got to help me.
You have been having a nice scene, haven't you? I could hear you right down the garden.
Please mind your own business.
If you behaving like a lunatic isn't my business, nothing is.
I expect it was about me, wasn't it? I know I ought to feel sorry, but I'm not. I'm delighted.
How can you be so inconsiderate?
Inconsiderate. I like that, I must say.
Ruth, please.
Don't come near me.
Oh, let her have a nice cry. It'll do her good.
You're utterly heartless. I was not talking to you. I was talking to Elvira.
Go on talking to her then. Talk to her until you're blue in the face, but don't talk to me.
I don't mean to be rude, but you must see.
It's all your own fault for having married a woman who is incapable of seeing beyond the nose on her face. If she had a grain of real sympathy or affection for you, she'd believe what you tell her.
How could you expect anybody to believe this?
You'd be surprised how gullible people are. We often laugh about it on the other side.
Charles,
Yes, dear?
I'm awfully sorry I was cross.
But, my dear...
I understand everything now. I do, really.
You do?
Of course I do.
Ruth, dear, listen.
I want you to come upstairs with me and go to bed.
Oh, the way that woman hops on. Bed is nothing short of erotic.
What are you up to?
I'm not up to anything. I just want you to go quietly to bed and wait there until Dr. Bradman comes.
He'll have you in a straitjacket before you know where you are.
Listen, Ruth.
Yes, dear.
Bear with me. However mad it may seem, bear with me for just 5 minutes longer.
Very well. What is it?
Ruth, I want to explain to you that clearly and without emotion, that beyond any shadow of a doubt, the ghost or shade, or whatever you like to call it, of my first wife, Elvira, is in the room now.
Yes, dear.
I know you don't believe it and are trying valiantly to humour me, but I intend to prove it to you. Promise you'll do what I ask.
That all depends what it is.
Ruth, you see that bowl of flowers on the piano?
Yes, dear. I did it myself this morning.
Very untidily, if I may say so.
You may not.
Very well. I never will again, I promise.
Elvira will now carry that bowl of flowers to the mantelpiece and back again. You will, Elvira, won't you? Just to please me.
I don't really see why I should. You've been quite insufferable to me since I materialized.
Please.
All right. I will just this once. Not that I approve of all these masculine and debonk carryings on.
How dare you, Charles? You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
What on earth for?
It's a trick. I know perfectly well it's a trick. You've been working up to this. It's all part of some horrible plan.
I swear it isn't. It isn't. Elvira, do something else for God's sake.
Certainly, anything to oblige.
Charles, this is madness. Sheer madness. Some sort of auto-suggestion, isn't it? Some form of hypnotism. Swear to me it's only that. Swear to me it's only that.
Hypnotism, my foot.
Madam Arcati.
My dear Mrs. Condamine, I came directly. I got your message.
Very kind of you.
Kind? Nonsense. Nothing kind about it. I look upon it as an outing.
Do sit down. I am profoundly disturbed, Madame Arcati, and I want your help.
Fire away.
It's most awfully difficult to explain.
Facts first, explanations afterwards.
It's the facts that are difficult to explain. They're so fantastic.
Come now, take the plunge. Out with it. You've heard strange noises in the night, no doubt. Boards creaking, doors slamming, subdued moanings in the passages. Is that it?
No, I'm afraid it isn't.
No sudden gusts of cold wind, I hope.
No, it's worse than that.
I'm all attention.
You know that my husband was married before.
Yes, I have heard it mentioned.
His first wife, Elvira, died comparatively young.
Where?
Here, in this house, in this very room.
And she materialized the other evening after I had gone?
Not to me, but to my husband.
Capital, capital. Oh, but that's splendid.
From your own professional standpoint, I can see that it might be regarded as a major achievement.
It's tremendous. I haven't had such a success since the Sudbury case.
Nevertheless, I must insist upon your controlling your natural exuberance. I appreciate fully your pride in your achievement. I would like to point out that it has made my position in this house untenable, and that I hold you entirely responsible.
Forgive me, Mrs. Condamine. I am being abominably selfish. How can I help you?
How? By sending her back immediately to where she came from, of course.
I'm afraid that is easier said than done.
Do you mean to tell me that she is liable to stay here indefinitely?
It's difficult to say. I fear it depends largely on her.
But my dear Madame Arcati.
Forgive this formality, but I shall have to make a report to the psychical research people.
I would be very much obliged if there were no names mentioned.
Oh, no, of course not. The report will be confidential.
This is a small village, you know, and gossip would be most undesirable.
I quite understand. You say she is visible only to your husband?
Yes.
Visible only to husband. Audible too, I presume?
Extremely audible.
Extremely audible. Your husband was devoted to her?
Yes, I believe so.
She must have marked herself down for a return visit, and she'd never have been able to manage it unless there was a strong influence at work.
Do you mean that Charles, my husband, wanted her back all that much?
Possibly, or it might have been her own determination.
That sounds much more likely.
I fully sympathise with you, Mrs. Condamine, and I assure you I will do anything in my power to help. But at the moment I fear I cannot offer any great hopes.
Be that as it may, Madame Arcati, I must beg of you to do your utmost to dematerialize my husband's first wife as soon as possible.
The time has come for me to admit to you, frankly, Mrs. Condamine, that I hadn't the faintest idea how to set about it.
Do you mean to sit there and tell me that having mischievously conjured up this ghost or spirit or whatever she is and placed me in a hideous position, you are unable to do anything about it at all.
Honesty is the best policy.
Do you realise what your insane amateur muddling has done?
I have been a professional since I was a child, Mrs. Condamine. Amateur is not a word I can tolerate.
It seems to me to be the height of amateurishness to evoke malignant spirits and not be able to get rid of them again.
Try to look on the bright side.
Bright side indeed! If your husband's first wife suddenly appeared from the grave and came to live in the house with you, do you suppose you'd be able to look on the bright side?
I resent your tone, Mrs. Condamine. I really do. Kindly remember that I came here the other night on your own invitation. Your husband was obviously eager to get in touch with his former wife. If I had been aware of that at the time, I should naturally have consulted you beforehand.
He had no intention of trying to get in touch with anyone. The whole thing was planned in order for him to get material for a mystery novel he's writing about a homicidal medium.
Am I to understand that I was only invited in the spirit of mockery?
Oh, not at all. He merely wanted to make notes of some of the trade.
Tricks of the trade! Insufferable! I've never been so insulted in my life. I fear we have nothing more to say to one another, Mrs. Condamine. Goodbye.
Please don't go. Please don't go. Oh, damn.
What on earth was Madame Arcati doing here?
She came to tea.
What was the old girl so cross about? She practically cut me dead.
I told her the truth about why we invited her the other night.
That was quite unnecessary and most unkind.
She needed taking down a bit. She was blown herself out like a pouter pigeon.
Why did you ask her to tea?
To get me exorcised, of course.
Is that true, Ruth?
Is what true?
What Elvira said.
You know perfectly well I can't hear what Elvira says.
She said that you got Madame Arcati here to try to get her exorcised. Is that true?
We discussed the possibilities.
There's a snake in the grass for you.
You had no right to do such a thing without consulting me.
I have every right. This situation is absolutely impossible and you know it.
If only you'd make an effort to try and be a little more friendly to Elvira, we might all have quite a jolly time.
Where is Elvira at the moment?
In the chair by the table.
I wish to be absolutely honest with you, Elvira.
Hold on to your hats, boys.
I admit I did ask Madame Arcati here with a view to getting you exercised. And I think that if you were in my position, you would have done exactly the same thing, wouldn't you?
I shouldn't have done it so obviously.
What did she say?
Nothing. She just nodded and smiled.
Thank you, Elvira. That's generous of you. I really would say much rather that there were no misunderstandings between us.
That's very sensible, Ruth. I agree entirely.
I want, before we go any further, to ask you a frank question. Why did you really come here? I don't see that you could have hoped to have achieved anything by it beyond the immediate joke of making Charles into a sort of astral bigamist.
I came because the power of Charles's love tugged and tugged and tugged at me.
What did she say?
She said that she came because she wanted to see me.
Well, she's done that now, hasn't she?
We can't be inhospitable, Ruth.
Didn't the old spiritualist have any constructive ideas about getting rid of me?
What did Madame Arcati say?
She said she couldn't do a thing. Oh. Charles!
Oh, she's off again.
You really must not be so callous, Elvira. Try to see her point a little.
I suppose she said something insulting.
No, dear, she didn't do anything of the sort.
This is intolerable.
For heaven's sake, don't get into another state.
I've been doing my level best to control myself ever since yesterday morning, and I'm damned if I'm going to try any more. The strain is too much. She has the advantage of being able to say whatever she pleases without me being able to hear her. She can hear me all right, can't she? Without any modified interpreting.
Modified interpreting? I don't know what you mean.
Oh, yes, you do. You haven't told me once what she really said. You wouldn't dare. Judging by her photograph, she's the type who would use the most unpleasant language.
Ruth, you're not to talk like that.
I've been making polite conversation all through dinner last night and breakfast and lunch today, and it's been a nightmare, and I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't like Elvira any more than she likes me. And what's more, I'm certain that I never could have, dead or alive. The first thing in the morning, I'm going up to London to interview the Psychical Research Society. And if they fail me, I shall go straight to the Archbishop of Canterbury.
It's unlike her to behave like this. She's generally so equable.
No, she isn't. Not really. Her mouth gives her away. It's a hard mouth, Charles.
Her mouth's got nothing to do with it. I resent you discussing Ruth as though she were a horse. I'm going to go up and talk to Ruth.
Cowardly custard.
Don't be idiotic. I can't let her go like that. I must be a little nice and sympathetic to her.
I don't see why. If she's set on being disagreeable, I should just let her get on with it.
What do you want, Elvira?
Want? I don't know what you mean.
I remember that whenever you were overpoweringly demure, it usually meant you wanted something.
It's horrid of you to be so suspicious. All I want is to be with you.
Well, you are.
I mean alone, darling. If you go and pamper Ruth and smarm over her, she'll probably come flouncing down again and our lovely quiet evening together will be spoiled.
You're incorrigibly selfish.
Well, I haven't seen you for 7 years. It's only natural that I should want a little time alone with you to talk over old times. I'll let you go up for just a little while if you really think it's your duty.
Of course it is.
Then I don't mind.
You're disgraceful, Elvira.
Thank you, Charles.
Does it show any signs of clearing?
No, it's still pouring.
I do sympathise with you. I really do. It's really been quite a chapter of accidents, hasn't it?
Certainly has.
And that happens sometimes, you know. Everything seems to go wrong at once, exactly as though there were some evil forces at work. I remember once, George and I went away for a fortnight's holiday, not long after we were married. We were dogged by bad luck from beginning to end. The weather was vile. George sprained his ankle. I caught a cold and had to stay in bed for 2 days. And to crown everything, the lamp fell over in the sitting room and set fire to the treatise George had written on the hyperplasia of the abdominal glands.
How dreadful.
I had to write the whole thing all over again, every single word.
You're sure you wouldn't like a cocktail or some sherry or anything?
No, thank you, really not. George will be down in a minute and we've got to go like lightning. We were supposed to be at the Wilmots at 7 and it's nearly that now.
I think I'll have a little sherry. I feel I need it.
Don't worry about your husband's arm, Mrs. Condamine. I'm sure it's only a sprain.
Not his arm I'm worried about.
And I'm sure Edith will be up and about again in a few days.
My cook gave notice this morning.
Really? Servants are awful, aren't they? Not a shred of gratitude. At the first sign of trouble, they run out on you like rats leaving a sinking ship.
Can't feel that your simile was entirely fortunate, Mrs. Bradman.
Oh, I didn't mean that. Really, I didn't.
Nothing to worry about, Miss Condamine. It's only a slight strain.
I'm so relieved.
You made a good deal of fuss when I examined it. Men are much worse patients than women, you know, particularly high-strung men like your husband.
Is he highly strung, do you think?
He's in a rather nervous condition. Nothing serious, you understand.
What makes you think so?
Well, I know the symptoms. Of course, The shock of his fall might have something to do with it, but I certainly should advise a complete rest for the rest of this week.
You mean he ought to go away?
I do. In cases like this, a change of atmosphere can work wonders.
What symptoms did you notice?
Nothing to be unduly alarmed about. A certain air of strain and inability to focus his eyes on the person he's talking to. A few rather marked irrelevancies in his conversation.
I see. Can you remember any specific example?
He shouted, "What are you doing in the bathroom?" And a little later, whilst I was writing him a prescription, he suddenly said, "For God's sakes, behave yourself."
How extraordinary.
He often goes on like that, particularly when he's immersed in writing a book.
I'm not in the slightest bit perturbed about it, really, but I do think a rest and a change would be a very good idea.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Would you like some sherry?
No, thank you. We must really be off.
How is poor Edith?
She'll be all right in a few days. She's still recovering from the concussion.
It is funny, isn't it, that both your housemaid and your husband should fall down on the same day, isn't it?
Yes, if that sort of thing amuses you.
Of course, I didn't mean it like that, Mrs. Condamine.
Along, my dear, you're talking too much as usual.
You are horrid, George. Goodbye, Mrs. Condamine.
Goodbye.
And have a look at those patients sometime tomorrow morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, how does it feel?
All right.
Only a slight sprain, you know.
I had intended to drive into Folkestone this evening.
Much better if you didn't.
It's extremely inconvenient.
You can easily wait and go tomorrow, Charles.
I can't stand another of those dreary evenings at home, Charles. It'll drive me dotty. And I haven't seen a movie for 7 years.
You'd much better stay at home, dear.
Couldn't you drive him?
I'm afraid not. I've lots to do in the house, and there's Edith to be attended to.
Well, I'll leave you to fight it out amongst yourselves. But remember, if you do insist on going, carefully does it. The roads are very slippery anyhow. Come along, Violet.
Goodbye again. Goodbye, Mr. Condamine.
Goodbye.
You really are infuriating, Elvira. Surely you could wait and go to the movies another night.
What?
I was talking to Elvira.
She isn't here.
She was a moment ago.
She's been very high-spirited all day. I know this mood of old usually meant that she was up to something.
You sure she isn't here?
Quite sure.
I want to talk to you.
You've behaved very well for the last few days, Ruth. You're not going to start making scenes again, are you?
I resent the air of patronage, Charles. My patience is being stretched to its uttermost.
As far as I can see, the position is just as difficult as Elvira as it is for you, if not more so. The poor little thing comes back trustingly after all those years in the other world, and what is she faced with? Nothing but brawling and hostility.
This is a fight, Charles. A bloody battle. A duel to the death between Elvira and me. Don't you realise that? She came here with one purpose, and one purpose only. And if you can't see it, you're a bigger fool than I thought of you.
What purpose could she have had beyond a natural desire to see me again? After all, you must remember that she was extremely attached to me, poor child.
Her purpose is perfectly obvious. It is to get you to herself forever.
That's absurd. How could she?
By killing you off, of course.
Killing me off? You're mad.
Why do you suppose Edith fell down the stairs and nearly cracked her skull?
What's Edith got to do with it?
Because the whole of the top stair was covered in axle grease. Cook discovered it afterwards.
You're making this up, Ruth.
I'm not. I swear I'm not. Why do you suppose, when you were lopping that dead branch off the pear tree, that the ladder broke? Because it had been practically sawn in half on both sides.
But why should she want to kill me? I could understand her wanting to kill you.
Oh.
Why me?
If I were dead, it would be her final triumph over me. But she'd have you forever on her damned astral plane if she killed you, and I'd be left high and dry. She's probably planning a sort of spiritual remarriage. Wouldn't put anything past her.
She couldn't be so sly, so wicked. She couldn't.
Oh, for heaven's sake, stop looking like a wounded spaniel and concentrate.
What are we to do?
You're not to let her know that we suspect a thing. Behave perfectly ordinarily, as though nothing had happened. I'm going to Madame Arcati immediately. I'll be back in half an hour and tell Elvira I've gone to see the vicar.
Look out!
What?
I merely said it's a nice lookout.
What's a nice lookout?
The weather, Elvira. The glass is going down and down and down. It's positively macabre.
I find it difficult to believe that you and Ruth, at this particular moment, can't think of anything more interesting to talk about than the weather. Has she broken out again?
What did she say?
She asked if you had broken out again.
Charles and I were not talking about the weather, Elvira, as you so shrewdly suspected. I should loathe you to think that we have any secrets from you. I was trying to persuade him not to drive you into Folkestone this evening. It will be bad for his arm, and you can perfectly easily wait until tomorrow. However, as he seems to be determined to place your wishes before mine in everything, I have nothing further to say. I'm sure I hope you both enjoy yourselves.
There now.
Oh, Charles, have you been beastly to her?
As I told you before, I would rather not discuss Ruth with you. It makes me uncomfortable.
I won't mention her again. Are you ready?
What for?
To go to Folkestone, of course.
I want a glass of sherry first.
I don't believe you want to take me at all.
Of course I want to take you, but I still think it would be more sensible to wait until tomorrow. It's a filthy night.
You are tiresome, darling. I've been waiting about for hours.
A few more minutes won't make any difference then.
Oh, very well.
Besides, the car won't be back for half an hour at least.
What do you mean?
Ruth's taken it. She had to go and see the vicar.
What?
What on earth's the matter?
You say Ruth's taken the car?
Yes, to go and see the vicar, but she won't be long.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Elvira?
Stop her! You must stop her!
Why? What for?
Stop her at once! Go out and stop her immediately, Charles!
It's too late now. I heard her go a couple of minutes ago. What's going on like this for? What have you done?
Done? I haven't done anything.
Elvira, you're lying.
I'm not lying. What is there to lie about?
You've done something dreadful.
Don't look at me like that, Charles. I haven't. I swear I haven't.
My God! The car!
No, Charles, no!
Ruth was right. You did want to kill me. You've done something to the car. What did you do? Answer me!
I hope you will not consider this an intrusion, Mr. Condamine.
Not at all. Please sit down, will you?
I allowed myself to get into a huff the other day with your late wife. I rode all the way home in the grip of temper, Mr. Condamine. I have regretted it ever since.
My dear Madame Arcati.
I threw up the sponge in a moment of crisis. I threw up the sponge instead of throwing down the gauntlet.
Whatever you threw, Madame Arcati, I very much fear nothing could have been done. It seems that circumstances have been a little too strong for all of us.
I cannot bring myself to admit defeat so easily. It is gall and wormwood to me. I could at least have concentrated, made an effort.
Never mind.
I do mind. I cannot help it. I mind with every fibre of my being. I've been thinking very carefully. I've also been reading up a good deal during the last few dreadful days. I gather that we are alone.
My first wife is not in the room. She is lying down. The funeral exhausted her. I imagine that my second wife is with her, but of course I have no way of knowing for certain.
You have remarked no difference in the texture of your first wife since the accident?
No, she seems much as usual. A little under the weather, perhaps, a trifle low-spirited, but that's all.
Well, that washes that out.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Just a little theory I had. In the 19th century, there was a pretty widespread belief that a spirit who had participated in the death of a human being disintegrated automatically.
Wait, how do you know that Elvira was any way responsible for Ruth's death?
It came to me last night, Mr. Condamine. It came to me in a blinding flash. I had just finished my Ovaltine and turned the light out when I suddenly started up to bed with a loud cry. Great Scott, I said, I've got it. After that, I began to put two and two together. At 3 in the morning, with my brain fairly seething, I went to work on my crystal for a little, but it wasn't very satisfactory. Cloudy, you know.
Now, look here, Madame Arcati.
Look, you are still anxious to dematerialize your wife, I suppose.
Of course I am. I'm perfectly furious with her, but...
Your delicacy of feeling does you credit, but I must say, if you will forgive my bluntness, that you are a damned fool, Mr. Condamine.
You are at liberty to think whatever you please.
Now. Please don't get on your high horse. There's no sense in that, is there? I have a formula here that I think I will be able to get rid of her without hurting her feelings in the least. It's extremely simple and requires nothing more than complete concentration from you and a minor trance from me. I may even be able to manage it without lying down.
Honestly, I would rather...
Charles!
What on earth's the matter?
Oh, what is she doing here?
She came to offer me her condolences.
They should have been congratulations.
Please don't say things like that, Elvira. It is in the worst possible taste. Madame Arcati, allow me to introduce my first wife, Elvira.
How do you do?
She's the one who got me here in the first place, isn't she?
Yes.
Well, please tell her to get me away again as soon as possible. I can't stand this house another minute.
Are you happy, my dear?
Tell the silly old bitch to mind her own business.
Was the journey difficult? Are you weary?
For God's sake, tell her to go into the other room, Charles. I've got to talk to you.
Madame Arcati, would you think it most frightfully rude if I asked you to go into the dining room for a moment? My first wife wishes to speak to me alone.
Oh, must I? It's so lovely being actually in the room with her.
Only for a few minutes. I promise she'll be here when you come back.
Very well.
The whole thing's been a failure. A miserable, dreary failure. And oh, what high hopes I started out with.
You can't expect much sympathy from me, you know. I am perfectly aware that your highest hope was to murder me.
Oh, Charles.
Stop crying.
They're only ghost tears. They don't mean anything, really. But they are painful.
You've brought all this on yourself, you know.
That's right. Rub it in. Anyhow, it was only because I loved you. The silliest thing I ever did in my whole life was to love you. You were always unworthy of me.
That remark comes perilously near impertinence, Elvira.
I sat there on the other side, just longing for you, day after day. I did, really. If only you died before you met Ruth, everything might have been all right. She's absolutely ruined you. I hadn't been in the house a day before I realized that. Your books aren't a quarter as good as they used to be either.
That is entirely untrue. Ruth helped me and encouraged me with my work, which is a damned sight more than you ever did.
You never loved me a bit, really. It was only your beastly vanity.
You seriously believe that it was only vanity that upset me when you went out in the punt with Guy Henderson?
It was not a punt. It was a little launch.
I don't care if it was a 3-masted schooner. You had no right to go.
You seem to forget why I went. You seem to forget that you had spent the entire evening making sheep's eyes at that overblown harridan with the false pearls.
A woman in Cynthia Cheviot's position would hardly wear false pearls.
They were practically all she was wearing.
There is nothing to be gained by continuing this discussion.
You always used to say that when you were thoroughly worsted. That's why I went out on the moors that day with Captain Bracegirdle. I was desperate.
You swore to me that you'd gone over to see your aunt in Exmouth. What a fool I was! What a blind fool! Did he make love to you?
Of course.
Oh, Elvira!
Only very discreetly. He was in the cavalry, you know.
Well, all I can say is that I'm well rid of you.
Unfortunately, you're not.
Yes, I am. You're dead, and Ruth's dead. I shall sell this house, lock, stock, and barrel, and go away.
I shall have to follow you. You called me back.
I did not call you back.
Well, somebody did, and it's hardly likely to have been Ruth.
I might just as easily have been talking about Joan of Arc, but that wouldn't necessarily mean that I wanted her to come and live with me.
As a matter of fact, she's rather fun.
Stick to the point.
When I think of what might have happened if I'd succeeded in getting you to the other world after all, it makes me shudder. It does, honestly. It would be nothing but bickering and squabbling forever and ever and ever. I swear I'll be better off with Ruth. At least she'll find her own set and not get in my way.
Oh, so I get in your way now, do I?
Only because I was idiotic enough to imagine that you loved me. And I sort of felt sorry for you.
I'm sick of these insults. Please go away.
There's nothing I should like better. I've always believed in cutting my losses. That's why I died. Call that old girl in again. Set her to work. I won't tolerate this any longer. I want to go home.
I quite agree, and the sooner the better. Madame Arcati, can you please come in now?
Is the darling still here?
Yes, she is.
Where? Tell me where.
Over by the piano.
My dear, my dear.
Stop her fawning on me, Charles, or I shall break something.
Elvira and I have discussed the whole situation, Madame Arcati, and she wishes to go home immediately.
You don't think she would like to stay a few days longer while I try and get a little more organised?
No, I want to go now.
We are both agreed that she must go as soon as possible.
Well, if you insist.
I most emphatically do insist.
I can't guarantee anything, you know. I'll do my best, but it may not work.
What is this formula?
Nothing more than a little verse, really. It fell into disuse after the 17th century. I shall need some pepper and salt.
There's some pepper and salt in the dining room. I'll get it.
We ought, of course, to have some shepherd's wort and a frog or two, but I think I can manage without. You won't be frightened, dear, will you? It's absurdly painless.
Will this be enough?
Oh, yes, I only need a little. Put it on the table, please. Now then, let me see. Ah, yes, sprinkle it, will you?
Oh.
Just a stick on. There, right in the middle.
This is a waste of time. She's a complete fake.
Anything's worth trying.
I'm as eager for it to succeed as you are. Don't make any mistake about that. But I lay you 10 to 1, it's a dead failure.
Now, if your wife would be kind enough to lie down on the sofa.
Go on, Elvira.
This is sheer nonsense.
That's right, quite right. Hands at the sides, legs extended, breathe steadily. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Is she comfortable?
Are you comfortable, Elvira?
No.
She's quite comfortable.
I shall join you in a moment, Mr. Condamine. I may have to go into a slight trance, but if I do, pay no attention.
I see.
Hold on to yourself. Concentrate. Ghostly spectre, ghoul or friend, never be more thou convened. Shepherd's wort and holy rite, banish thee into the night.
What a disagreeable little verse.
Be quiet, Elvira.
Oh, 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 oh.
She's in one of her damned trances again. And here I am, as much as I ever was.
For God's sake, wake up!
Oh, leave her alone. She's having a whale of a time.
Oh, what happened?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
Oh, yes, it did. I know something happened.
You fell over, that's all that happened.
Is she still there?
Of course she is.
Something must have gone wrong.
Once and for all, Charles, what the hell does this mean? Now listen to me, Elvira. If you and I have got to stay together indefinitely in this house, and it looks unpleasantly likely, we had better come to some sort of an arrangement.
What sort of an arrangement?
You're not going to stay indefinitely in this house.
With you, then, we shall have to be with you.
I don't see why. Why don't you take a cottage somewhere?
You called us back.
I've already explained that I did nothing of the sort.
Madame Arcati said you did.
Madame Arcati's a muddling old fool.
I could have told you that in the first place.
I think you're behaving very shabbily, Charles.
I don't see what I've done.
We all agreed that as Elvira and I are dead, that it would be both right and proper for us to dematerialize again as soon as possible. That I admit. We have allowed ourselves to be subjected to the most humiliating hocus pocus for hours and hours without complaining.
Without complaining.
If she can't get us back, she can't, and that's that. We shall have to think of something else.
She must get you back. Anything else is unthinkable.
There's gratitude for you.
Gratitude?
Yes. For all the years we both devoted to you, you ought to be ashamed.
What about all the years I've devoted to you?
Nonsense. We've waited on you hand and foot, haven't we, Ruth? You're exceedingly selfish and always were.
In that case, I failed to see why you were both so anxious to get back to me.
You called us back, and you've done nothing but try to get rid of us ever since we came, hasn't he, Elvira?
He certainly has.
And now, owing to your idiotic inefficiency, we find ourselves in the most mortifying position. We're neither flesh, fish, nor fowl, nor whatever it is.
Well, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you go back on your own?
We can't. You know perfectly well we can't.
Perhaps Charles doesn't want us to go quite enough.
I certainly do.
Well, you must have a very weak will then. I always suspected it.
It's no use arguing anymore. Wake up, Madame Arcati.
Please wake up, Madame Arcati.
Oh, what time is it?
5:10.
What time did I go off?
Over an hour ago.
They're still here.
Yes.
How disappointing.
Have you any suggestions?
We mustn't give up hope. Chin up, never give in. That's my motto. What do you say we have another seance and really put our shoulders to the wheel, make it a real rouser?
Oh, for God's sake, not another seance.
Don't you think, Madame Arcati, that perhaps we've had enough seances? After all, they haven't achieved much, have they?
Rome wasn't built in a day, you know.
I know it wasn't, but...
Well then, cheer up, away with melancholy. Now then, Mr. Condamine, the discussion. Fire away.
Well, my wives and I have been talking it over, and they are both absolutely convinced that I, somehow or other, called them back.
Very natural.
I am convinced that I did not.
Love is a strong psychic force, Mr. Condamine. It can work untold mysteries. A true love call can encompass the universe.
I did not call them back, either subconsciously or consciously.
But Mr. Condamine...
That is my final word on the subject.
Neither of them could have appeared unless there'd been somebody, a psychic subject in the house, who wished for them.
Well, it wasn't me.
Are you sure? Are you really sure?
Absolutely positive.
I do believe I'm barking up the wrong tree.
How do you mean?
The Sudbury case.
I don't understand.
I dematerialized old Lady Sudbury after she'd been firmly entrenched in the private chapel for over 17 years.
How? Can you remember how?
Wait, all in good time. Now, let me see. Who was in the house during our first seance?
Only the Bradmans, Ruth, and me, and yourself.
Ah, yes, yes, to be sure. But the Bradmans weren't here last night, were they?
No.
Quickly, my crystal.
Oh, yes. Here you go.
Oh, that's better. Damn the thing. Cloudy again. Right, there. It's here again. I'm beginning to understand.
I wish I was. What's there again?
She's too good, you know. She ought to be in a circus.
Be you in nook or cranny, answer me. Be you in still room or closet, answer me. Be you behind the panel, above the stairs, beneath the eaves, waking or sleeping. Answer me! That ought to do it. Or I'm a Dutchman.
Do what?
Hush, wait.
God's sake, don't throw any more of that garlic about. It nearly made me sick last time.
Would you like the gramophone on, or the lights out, or anything?
No, it's near, very near.
Did you ring, sir?
No, Edith.
Ah, I'm sorry, sir. I could have sworn I heard the bell. Or somebody was calling. I was asleep. Didn't rightly know which it was.
Come here, child. Whom do you see in this room?
Oh dear.
Answer, please.
You, madam?
Go on.
The master?
Anyone else?
No, madam.
Look again.
I don't understand, sir. I
Come,
really...
child. Don't beat about the bush. Look again.
Ooh, concentrate, Elvira, and keep still.
I can't.
You see anyone else now?
No, madam.
He's lying. They always do.
They?
Where are they now?
By the fireplace!
She can see them. Do you mean that she can see them?
Probably not very clearly, but enough.
Oh, let me go. I haven't done nothing, nor seen nobody. Just let me go back to bed.
It's down.
Please, sir,
Please do as Madame Arcati says, Edith.
I haven't done nothing wrong.
It's all right. Nobody said you had.
Look at me, Edith. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo.
Oh dear, what's the matter with her? She bar me.
Here, Edith, this is my finger. Look. Have you ever seen such a long, long finger? Look, now it's on the right. Now it's on the left. Backwards and forwards it goes. See, very quietly, backwards and forwards. Tick, tock, tick, tock.
The mouse ran up the clock.
It will ruin everything.
Well, so far so good. She's off all right.
Off?
She's a natural, just the same as the Sudbury case. It really is the most amusing coincidence. Now then, would you ask your wives to stand close together, please?
Elvira, Ruth?
I believe it's going to work, whatever it is. Oh, Charles.
Shh.
This is goodbye, Charles.
Tell her to stop for a minute. There's something I want to say before I go.
You should have thought of that before. It's too late now.
Lights!
I saw Captain Bracegirdle again, Charles. Several times. I went to the 400 with him twice when you were in Nottingham, and I must say I couldn't have enjoyed it more.
Don't think you're getting rid of us quite so easily, my dear. You may not be able to see us, but we shall be here all right. I consider that you have behaved atrociously after the whole miserable business, and I should like to say, here and now.
Splendid, hurrah! We've done it.
They've gone! They've really gone!
Yes, I think we've really pulled it off this time.
Oh, you'd better wake her up, hadn't you? She might bring them back again.
Wake up, child!
Good heavens. Where am I?
It's all right, Edith. You can go back to bed now.
Why? This morning?
Yes, I know it is.
But I was in bed. How did I get down here?
I rang, Edith. I rang the bell and you answered it. Didn't I, Madame Arcati?
Did I drop off? Do you think it's my concussion again? Oh, dear.
Off you go, Edith, and thank you very, very much. Thank you very much indeed.
Sir? Whatever for? Oh, sir!
What on earth did she mean by that?
Golly, what a night! I'm ready to drop in my tracks.
I'm deeply grateful to you, Madame Arcati. I don't know what arrangements you generally make, but I trust you will send me your account in due course.
Good heavens, Mr. Condamine. It was a pleasure. I wouldn't dream of such a thing.
Perhaps you'd give me the pleasure of lunching with you someday soon.
When you come back, I should be delighted.
Come back?
Take my advice, Mr. Condamine, and go away immediately. There are more things in heaven and earth, Mr. Condamine. Just go. Pack your traps and go as soon as possible.
Do you mean to say that they may still be here?
Quien sabe, as the Spanish say.
I wonder. I'll follow your advice, Madame Arcati. Thank you again.
Well, goodbye, Mr. Condamine. It's been fascinating. From the first to the last. Fascinating.
Ruth? Elvira! Are you there? Ruth? Elvira? I know damn well you're there. I just want to tell you that I'm going away, so there's no point in your hanging about any longer. I'm going a long way away, somewhere where I don't believe you'll be able to follow me. Is that quite clear, my darlings? You said in one of your more acid moments, Ruth, that I had been hag-ridden all my life. Well, how right you were. But now I'm free, Ruth dear, not only of Mother and Elvira and Miss Winthrop Llewellyn, but free of you too. And I should like to take this farewell opportunity of saying I'm enjoying it immensely. Oh, I thought so. You were always very silly, Elvira, to imagine that I didn't know all about you and Captain Bracegirdle. I did. Well, what you didn't know is that I was extremely attached to Paula Westlake at the time. I was reasonably faithful to you, Ruth, but I doubt if it would have lasted much longer. You were becoming increasingly domineering, you know, and there's nothing more off-putting than that, is there? Goodbye for the moment, my dears. I expect we are bound to meet again one day, but until we do, I'm going to enjoy myself as I've never enjoyed myself before. You can break up the house as much as you like. I'm leaving it anyhow. Think kindly of me and send out good thoughts. Nice work, Ruth. Get Elvira to help you. Persevere. Goodbye again. Parting is such a sweet sorrow. Woo! We got through it.
So that was Blithe Spirit. And we hope you enjoyed it. Now, before you go, we do have one last thing to say. It's quite important. We like to attach causes around theatres during this time to our shows. Last time we highlighted the Brookside Theatre, who could also still do with your help, if you don't mind. But we also have another theatre that we would really like to help out. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, so the cause that we're helping out today is Folksy Theatre and the GoFundMe for the Folksy Survival Fund. A little bit about them. Folksy Theatre are an open-air theatre company based in Glasgow. They do a Shakespeare tour and a kids show tour in the summer and a kids show tour in the winter. Unfortunately, they've had to cancel their summer season for reasons that I absolutely can't fathom. I have no idea why they've had to cancel that. Obviously, because of current circumstances. And there were some expenses that were non-refundable, unfortunately. So they are just raising money to help them kind of recoup some of their losses. I've worked for them personally. They're absolutely lovely. They treat their actors so well. And it's run by a pair of absolutely amazing people. So Tom and Lee, if you're watching, hello. And everyone else, have a look at the GoFundMe. It's in the description of this video. It's on our Twitter and it's on our Facebook page. Yes.
Lovely. Well, the only other thank yous left are to the lovely Anant Varman, who was our absolute saviour with the tech on this. You may remember him as Richardetto in Tis British as a Hall. And yeah, he's really done us a solid by helping us out today. So thank you very much, Anant. It's very appreciated. And the final thank yous are to all these lovely people that joined us today. Thank you so much for saying yes. I'm glad you did it. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. And thank you to anyone who tuned in to watch. We hope you enjoy it as much as we did. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Woo!
Woo! Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Did you leave me? Okay. Ah!